They took off from airfields in southern Argentina, equipped with Exocet missiles, and went in search of revenge. HMS Sheffield was on the lookout for enemy aircraft well forward of the main British fleet.
Blind, AWOL, one pop-up target, 01010.
Go flash, direct the radar.
The sea was very calm, we were looking out to sea, and I thought that it looked like a torpedo was on its way because the sea was shimmering and shaking, if you like. So I said I thought there was a torpedo. The pilot also had trained his glasses around to the same spot, and he said, no, it's an Exocet. The officer of the watch and other members of the bridge crew started to take cover. But I remember myself and the second officer of the watch becoming transfixed to the missile on its way in, which really does amaze me now when I come to think of it, but we watched it almost to the point of impact when we quickly huddled together and dropped to the floor.
On Hermes there was alarm and confusion. The attacking aircraft had been totally undetected until it struck. The ship swung away from the attack, and there was the crash of chaff charges being fired, throwing radar deflectors into the air to confuse incoming missiles. On the horizon we could see smoke rising from one of the destroyers. It had been hit, but how badly? The answer was brought by one of Sheffield's officers. His ship was aflame and disabled. All power, all communication, all ability to fight the flames had been lost. They needed firefighting assistance urgently. Casualties were heavy. The men hadn't had time to put on protective clothing. The attack had been too swift. Twenty men had died, all within minutes of the Exocet striking and filling the ship with pungent smoke. Another score were brought to the flagship for treatment. They all survived. The rest of the crew of Sheffield stayed on board, helping with the firefighting. But Sheffield's own water mains were out of action, and the ships alongside could do nothing but cool the outside of the hull. After 5 hours with parts of the deck white hot, the order was given to abandon ship. Sheffield continued to float while the fire burnt itself out, shrouded by the sea mists. The Navy wanted a safer, not just for pride, not just for the equipment aboard, but for the lessons they could learn about the vulnerability of ships to a modern missile. All this damage had been done by just one Exocet. One of the officers winched down to the still steaming decks to see what could be saved. When the sea came up, she sank, taking the bodies of the dead with her.
I can tell you that we're talking about seconds to react rather than minutes. And I'm sure you will appreciate that a missile which comes in less than 12 feet off the deck at very high speed, many hundreds of miles an hour, gives us a very short time of response. And we saw it at a stage at which there was really no time to do anything other than for those who were in the immediate vicinity of the small number of people who saw this missile appearing, only had time to say take cover. And we're talking about 3 or 4 seconds later, the missile striking HMS Sheffield.
How much effect did it have?
Devastating. It hit the center of the ship, which is the center of all operation, both mechanical and detection and weapon system-wise, about 6 feet above the water level, damaged 2 large compartments, and when inside the ship, exploded, and exploded outwards and upwards. And we're actually talking about 15 to 20 seconds, I know it sounds incredible, but 15 to 20 seconds before the whole of the working area of the ship, I'm talking about 1/3 of the ship, the center portion, was filled by black, acrid, pungent smoke. When we realized the fire was spreading, the decks were hot on the upper deck. You could feel the heat of the deck through your feet with shoes on. The superstructure was steaming. Paint on the ship's side was coming off. The area around the initial area where the missile penetrated the hull was glowing red. It was white hot and red hot. The flames we could see coming out of the hole, the extent of damage was such that we knew that there is no way in that class of submarine, that class of ship, that you can possibly fight that ship again with that amount of damage.
On the 9 o'clock news on May the 4th, the reality of the war was brought into millions of homes by Defence spokesman Ian MacDonald.
In the course of its duties within the total exclusion zone around the Falkland Islands, HMS Sheffield, a Type 42 destroyer, was attacked and hit late this afternoon by an Argentine missile. It is feared that there have been a number of casualties, but we have no details of them yet.
Britain has suffered its first major losses in the Falklands conflict. The Ministry of Defence announced tonight that the destroyer Sheffield came under an Argentine missile attack. It later sank. All the crew who got out of the ship have been picked up, but the ministry spokesman says there were casualties. He didn't say how many. HMS Sheffield, one of the most modern warships in the Royal Navy, normally has a crew of nearly 300 men. As well as her loss, a Sea Harrier was shot down and its pilot killed. And Portsmouth, home base for HMS Sheffield, was a city in mourning. Frances Coverdale has been there.
The local newspaper called it the City of Anguish, and certainly the people of Portsmouth haven't known anything like it since the Second World War. The atmosphere today was in stark contrast to that of 30 days ago, when the first of the task force ships sailed out. Today was the day the reality of the conflict in the South Atlantic came home. The reaction was naturally one of shock.
Well, you know, I got a few mates on there and everything, and I remember how they are, but it's very disheartening, and, well, I can't really say much more. Shocked us all.
I think it's terrible. I mean, who would have thought it came to this, and to hear a ship go down, one of ours as well, when it is bad?
Was it that much of a shock?
It was to me, yes. I didn't think it would end up with one of ours actually being sunk.